Hi, you guys. So what I wanted to do is just give you a little screencast that can review with you how to write a great hook for your narrative. I'm going to kind of flip through a little bit very quickly the first intro slides of what we did earlier, but this is really for you to use independently on your own time to remind you of what choices you have. Every paper has some kind of a hook. Typically a summary does not, but you never know. Sometimes you might want to start with a definition or something that's a little more informational. But narratives use little hooks, persuasive essays use hooks, even literary responses use hooks. I have a few examples in this particular screencast. This one is from White Fang by Jack London. And the question to ask yourself is, what are the strategies, what are the kinds of hooks you can see in this particular example? The eyes of the starving wolf pack gleamed like hot coals in the blackness of the frozen Arctic forest. They stared hungrily at the two man animals and their dog sled team huddled around the campfire. These man animals had fish and they had meat. To a starving wolf pack who had had little to eat in months, the dogs and the man animals were meat too. I love that hook. And I would ask you, do you see a simile here? I see at least one. I would argue also that there is perhaps even a metaphor as well, but I do see a very clear simile here in that their eyes gleamed like hot coals in the blackness of the frozen Arctic forest. I love that one. Here's one over here. Baroom, baroom, brippity, brippity, brippity. Good. His dad had the pickup going from Bridge to Terabithia. What I love about this is called an onomatopoeia, and it is a sound, a word that sounds like a word that is spelled the way it sounds. And what I like about this particular hook is that it's not obvious. I do not want to read a paper that starts with boom, or ring, or click, or something that is really obvious. Catherine Patterson, who wrote this, made up sounds that really, when you read them to yourself, sound like what they are. Baroom, baroom, barippity, brippity, brippity. Really interesting. That's called an onomatopoeia, if you want to say it the way it's spelled. Onomatopoeia. Here's another one that starts with dialogue from Beware Princess Elizabeth. The king is dead. Those four words, cold as marble, simile, sharp as flint, simile, were uttered by the thin, cruel lips of Edward Seymour, the king's privy councillor, and my brother's uncle. In this way I learned of my father's death. But it starts with dialogue. The king is dead. Possible hooks. We covered these in class. You've got a fact and statistic, tone and mood, simile, metaphor. You can start in the middle of the action. And of course, just to remind you, what I did was rehook an essay many different ways. The essay I rehooked kind of spoke to an informational essay about the Black Death that maybe you wrote in 7th grade, something like that. So you can start with a fact, statistic, tone, mood, simile, metaphor in the middle of the action. You can start with a definition, a piece of dialogue, or an onomatopoeia. And you can also start with a staccato 3-word lead. Staccato, boom, 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 punch, punch, punch. And I want to remind you of this one, that it's always good to start with the same part of speech. Noun, 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 verb, verb, verb. It somehow weakens it to mix up the parts of speech. You could start with lyrics. And of course, I think one of the most sophisticated hooks you can start with is the theme. So that's kind of an interesting thing to fool around with as well. I'm zipping through this because I know this is review for a lot of you, and I know that it's review for all of you because we did this morning. This is your assignment, just to review. You are going to analyze the hook of your new sci-fi book. Ah, that's a rhyme. I'm a poet and I didn't even know it. You will be creating a small project, only index card sized, that includes the following. On side 1 will be a paragraph, an analysis of the effectiveness of the hook. So it should also have a citation at the bottom, MLA format. You can use EasyBib out of Google and cut it out of a piece of paper. It has to include what was the strategy. Was it a simile? Was it a definition? Did it set the tone or the mood? It has to include a quote from the book. And it has to conclude with some commentary, your opinion of how effective it was at hooking you into the story. That's side one, it's a paragraph. Side two, flip, is a picture, an icon, a symbol, something that represents the hook. Do not recreate the cover of the book. I want to see a symbol that you believe represents the hook. The entire project needs to be a final draft in color, unless you've put so much effort into that pencil drawing that you can't do it in color or it'll ruin the artistry. Needs to be in ink, so the writing you're doing has to be in ink, or of course you could type it out and just glue it on the back. You can draw it. You can create a collage if you're not good at drawing. That's fine. Many other choices. So that's what your assignment is. And if you look on Wolpert World, you'll see the due date for that small index card assignment. Of course, there's something absolutely even more important than anything, which is that I expect the skills you're learning here in your writing class to transfer to the writing beyond my door in other classes. I do not want to hear in science class and in history class that this person doesn't know how to write a hook or can't embed evidence when this is something that we're talking about here and you're learning about in here as well. I expect to see these hook strategies at the start of your origin stories for your superheroes. And I also expect that you are using things like hooks in the writing you're producing in other classes as well. Transfer these skills. Transfer, transfer, transfer. Thank you very much. I hope this helps, and I will see you in class. Bye-bye.